working together in teams on your projects. But I hope that I can kind of give you some provocations for things to think about as you work together in teams. And so the title of my session today is Lessons from Life That Help Me in Leading Teams. Before I go into things though, I figured I should probably introduce myself a little bit to you all. So it's nice to meet you. My name's Ashley. I'm a design director at IDEO Tokyo. I've been in Japan for coming up to 10 years, and most of the time has also been spent in IDEO. When I'm not at work or taking care of my family, I enjoy cycling, and so I try to get out as much as I can on my bike. I saw Karen jumped in with a fun fact, so I can jump in, maybe add one of my own for me as well. I like making. I outside of work too, as a hobby, I like making stuff, and as an extension of my work, I like to design typefaces, or I like to try to learn how to design typefaces, as well as I've been picking up some work in 3D recently. So just trying to expand my own tools for creativity. At IDEO, though, I function within two of our disciplines. And perhaps you'll be able to encounter some others in future inspiration shots. One of the disciplines that I function in is visual communications. Outside of IDEO, perhaps that's more of akin to graphic design. And for me, inside of IDEO, that encompasses a lot of different things, but it's a mix of expressions such as branding, identity design, motion graphics, photography, typography, iconography, and so on. You can kind of get a glimpse here of quite a broad range of stuff that I get up to. I also function as an interaction designer. And within IDEO, interaction design is a pretty broad discipline, but I fall within the realm of UI, UX, rapid prototyping, that kind of area, which you can kind of get a glimpse of with some of the symmetry here too. And with my crafts, I'm what we would call a hybrid in IDEO. So my disciplines tend to overlap quite a lot and kind of take shape depending on the work that I'm being assigned. Oh, sorry, skip ahead a bit. However, another role that I fulfill within IDEO and within projects is that called a project lead. And so a project lead takes on the responsibility of stewarding a project with a team and enabling opportunities for success and creative output with our clients and other team members. Our work differs for every project that we do. At IDEO, we work with a number of industries. And so every project is different, with every industry, client, but also team members. Every project that we work with, we might be with a different team too. And so we have the chance to work with quite a variety of people, but that also comes with its quirks and challenges as well. As a project leader, ultimately this craft, it centers around people. It's really focused on enabling people to work and grow themselves in their own way and crafting that environment for them to do so, which also counts for you yourself as well in a team. A project lead isn't necessarily someone who is above everyone else within a team. At IDEO, we try to keep a flat hierarchy, and so we work together. We see eye to eye in all of the discussions and conversations that we have. And so some of these learnings as well, I think you can also see for yourself to be aware of how you're showing up with your teams. And so, yes, it's really a case of trying to make other people successful, essentially. And while doing so, trying to make work that you can be proud of. When I first started to project lead, it was quite nerve-wracking for me to suddenly feel like I had a lot of responsibilities on my shoulders to guide a project and not just be accountable for my own work, but also be accountable for the work of others too. I was given some good advice to help me better understand how I can approach developing this craft, this capability. And I was told project leading is almost like driving a car for the very first time. When you get in a car for the very first time, it's quite nerve-wracking. You know, you're in a machine that you don't know how fast or slow it can move, like you don't know how to control it. It's quite unwieldy. And so you really need to get in and out of the car a few times to start to get used to how things move and how to drive it, and build the muscles in order to drive efficiently. And so, yes, as much as well as I've been given advice over my time at IDEO, I hope I can kind of impart some to you all as well. And I tend to look for inspiration around me, the things that are happening around me when I'm maybe lacking creativity or ideas. And some of that has also been coming from my family. And so the stories here are a little bit old. My firstborn son is a little bit older now, so some of these stories are from when he was a child, when he was, sorry, a small toddler. But he was a constant inspiration source for me when I was going through this phase of project leading, when I was learning how to interact better with the other people around me, whilst I was also trying to work out how to be a father for my son. And so I have a few stories to share that kind of led me to find parallels in the work that I do. The first one, patience pays off. So sitting in a cafe one day, my wife and I were enjoying a coffee whilst our son, who was around 2 at the time, was sitting in his buggy and he was playing with his toes. You can see in the gifs here, he's kind of playing with his socks. And he would often be able to take his socks off. And one day we kind of were watching him and we saw he was almost trying to put the sock back on. And us as parents, as new parents at the time, we were very quick usually to kind of jump in and feel like we need to go in and save the situation. But my wife turned to me at this point and said, no, let's just watch. Let's just hold back and watch to see what it does. And so after playing with his toes and tickling to keep him entertained, he started to get his toe in one sock. And as it started to go in, I wanted to jump in and didn't. And he tried really hard and he got his foot in the sock. And he was so happy. He was so happy that he was able to accomplish this on his own. And it was hard for us to hold ourselves back, but the joy in his face when he did was really exciting for us too. I mean, he did get his foot in one sock, but he had 2 socks on 1 toe, so he was nearly there. He was so close to being able to do it. And so seeing how happy he was and raring to jump onto the challenge of getting his shoes on next made me realize it's important to give space for opportunities to emerge and give people the space to succeed on their own. And how this showed up within a context of me also learning how to fulfill this role of project lead was seeing the people around me, the people on my team, almost trying to put 2 socks on 1 foot every now and again, and really trying to understand that that's okay. Jumping in every 2 seconds to feel like you need to correct people, or maybe they're not doing it the way you imagine they might be doing, or the way you would be doing it, is really easy to do. But in doing so, you could be really preventing those people from their own growth and finding their own way of accomplishing the tasks at hand. And so creating that kind of environment is really empowering for them. And it's also important for you as the project leader to be able to have that patience to hold yourself back. At IDEO, we have a value at IDEO that's learning from failure. And if things don't work the first time, if you fail, it's okay. You can just try it again. And if it doesn't work, hopefully you learn something from that and we do it better next time. And in kind of giving people this space, this availability, you'd be surprised and hopefully delighted at the kind of growth you can see in people where if maybe get a boost in confidence or their skills develop greatly, just because you weren't there trying to interrupt them when they were just about to have those realizations themselves. The next story, align your energies, sorry. So when my son, around the same age of 2, his morning routine was to wake up usually at 6:30, which was kind of manageable for me and my wife. Like we were okay to get up at that time, but one day suddenly that switched and he was waking up at 4 a.m. every single day, so before the sun had even risen here. And that was quite difficult for us to suddenly have that change because there's no warning for it. And at Like at that point, he's up, he's wide awake, he wants to play, he's trying to jump out of his bed onto mummy and daddy, and we're tired because we've been taking care of him and working the day before. And it was really easy for us to feel like we were getting up on the wrong side of the bed every day, and we were grumpy and miserable every single day because we felt like it was more effort. But one day in this change, I had a spontaneous thought to try and kind of match my son's energy. And so we found a new routine of going out for walks and going to parks at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning before anyone was awake in Tokyo, and like just as the sun was rising. And it was great because there was no one around at that time. And finding that switch to kind of match myself with him and understand what it was that was making me stressful, and trying to alleviate that by doing something different, meant that we could all wake up happy again, even if it was at 4 a.m. in the morning. How this kind of translated to my learning working with teams is that when at IDEO we work with quite small teams, and we're with those team members for a long period of time. So we might be with 3 or 4 people to say 10 to 14 weeks, and we work exclusively on one project together. And so we're spending a lot of time together, and you see how different people show up. In every project, everyone maybe is a little bit different, but you see how people use their energy differently within the design process, where people get excited, motivated, or less so. And things can go sour too. Energies can collide. Maybe there can be tensions every now and again. And as a project leader, you perhaps have this sense of almost like a bird's eye view, where you're observing people a little bit more and seeing how these energies are really taking shape. And if things are maybe going sour, or you're not quite sure how to gel with one another, it's important, if you are able to take a moment to discuss that as a team, take a step back from maybe if you're having problems with one another, see where the differences are, or what kind of energies you're exerting, and how that might affect other people around you, and try to hash that out. It might be difficult to do, but it's important to do. You might even feel like you, as a project leader, maybe it's important for you to take people aside and have a heart-to-heart with one another to really understand what troubles people might be having if they're finding it difficult to show up the way that they want to within the project. And this goes for you too. So understanding how you show up in a room as well, and how the effect that you have on the other people around you, it's important to build that self-awareness, so that you maybe aren't exuding maybe negativity on the team, or maybe false expectations, or like you're maybe a little bit too hyper and energetic for your team. Having that kind of self-awareness is really important for you too. And being able to talk with one another about this kind of stuff really helps build relationships outside of projects too. So this even extends to friendships if it's people you're not really familiar working with. At IDEO, we do a number of rituals. We have a number of exercises that we do to help us in creating these moments for aligning each other. One thing we do is when we start a project, we have kind of a recurring meeting that happens before, in the middle, and after the project. And it's a chance for us to come together as a team and use it as a chance to voice what it is we want to be doing on a project. Do we all understand what the project is about? What could we do, or like what does an individual want to do that maybe is even a selfish ask? And use that as a moment to kind of get everything out on the table and say, look, this is an exciting project. I want to do this. Let's make cool stuff together. The meeting that happens in the middle of the project is a chance to kind of look back over the first half and see, is this right? Are we moving in a good direction? Are our clients happy? Are they excited about what we're moving towards? And if we need to pivot or instill new rituals and behaviors, it's a good chance for us to kind of take a moment of pause and see how we can progress to make sure that the project is successful. And the post project meeting is a chance to look back over the entire project and give each other candid feedback. If you felt like you want to impart some wisdom onto the people around you to either praise good work that they did and maybe made your life a lot easier, or if you have any perhaps watch outs for people, things that maybe would be good for people to take away and be cautious of the next time they're in a project. This is a ritual that we do for every single project that we do. Every team does this in order to make sure that we can work together and we can really focus on the work and hopefully take less energy and from butting heads if there's tension. Something else we do as well. So IDEO is part of a group called Q, and one of our sister companies called SY Partners developed a tool called Superpowers for understanding the ways that people work and the way that what their strengths are and what their watch outs might be. Each trait that you see on a card, you can kind of catch a glimpse of some examples here. There's one card on the top that says empathy, so the ability to empathize with others. There's another one, for example, called complexity busting, which is that superpower is really being able to look at complex problems and being able to simplify them. My superpower is grit. So my superpower is that I want to do the work. I will not stop until the job is done. And you can maybe already start to imagine what the blind side to that might be. It can be quite exhausting if you're really focused on one particular thing for a long period of time and are perhaps unwilling to look around you. You maybe miss things on the peripheral, or perhaps you just expend too much energy in getting it. But this is a tool that we have all new IDEOers do when they come into IDEO. And it's a good chance for us to, when we have these conversations around energies and how people want to show up, it's good. People will often say, oh, my superpower is this. And everyone already has kind of an instinctual sense of how that person might show up or what it is that's really going to motivate them in the project. The last ritual I'll introduce here is something that we do internally, but also with our clients do. Whenever we start a project, we do this exercise called hopes and fears. And it's a chance for, we try to really get our clients to do this too, as it gives them a chance to voice their opinions where perhaps they might not feel comfortable to do usually. And it's a chance to better understand what people hope to achieve when we do a project together, or maybe some reservations, some maybe anxieties or things that are top of mind for them that they're not quite sure yet how are going to come to play. And so what we do is we kind of each write a post-it, we put them in and we share back as a team to make sure that everybody has the chance to get a sense of what everybody is thinking and feeling. The next story, don't be afraid to fail. So you can see how it sounds a little bit bigger here. He's on a balance bike, and learning to ride a balance bike for the first time can be quite a scary task. Suddenly you're having a helmet strapped onto your head and you're sitting on an unbalanced vehicle and you want to make it move, and all it wants to do is fall over. At first you walk slowly, pushing the bike along, hoping that things don't go wrong, and slowly but surely, you start to build up confidence and start to move faster. After a few tries, you sit down, you start pushing with your legs and building up more and more speed. And before you know it, Daddy is running behind you, trying to catch up because you're moving too fast. At IDEO, when starting a journey into leadership, it's one that can come with many stumbles that I myself have experienced. And sometimes I wish that there was some protective headgear for, like I was able to give my son on his bike. It's one of those things where whilst people can be there for you to teach you the basics and maybe guide you along the way, the only real way you can gain experience in growing as a project leader is to experience it for yourself, to see how to do it in a way that's authentic to you. And the more and more you put yourself into those seemingly uncomfortable situations, the more empathetic you become to those who have shown you those basics, who have shown you the way. You also develop a means to get more exploratory in your approach, to do things in the way that feels right for you. At IDEO, each project lead has, you can almost say, a distinctive style. Like, oh, this project lead is going to do things in this kind of way, or like maybe a business designer is very organized and they're going to get everything done in time. And that kind of image really comes up from members taking those basics and working them in such a way that it becomes a tool for how they want to show up, rather than just a cookie cutter approach. every team, every designer and challenge that we work on for the users that we design for is different. And so, yes, doing things the same way with the exact same approach doesn't work. And it is the same for project leadership as well. And so as project leaders, we need to be flexible in our approach and open to the ideas of others, be it getting feedback from some of those rituals I explained before, or even conversing with our clients. The people you're designing with and designing for can give you those hints to show up in the way that you feel you're being the most successful. Before I shared a few kind of rituals, we for project leading at IDEO, there isn't exactly a formula, but people have developed kind of resources for themselves and to understand those basics. And if this is something you do, or if there's a particular process that you go down in your creative journeys that maybe you might be revisiting again, developing your own tools and resources is something that I would certainly recommend. We do have kind of like checklists and things that we do for every single project that we have. But this is also, we strictly see these resources as a tool to jump off on, rather than verbatim, you have to do this every single thing, every single time, because it might not always work. And so, yeah, this is one resource. These are a few things that we do get shared around every now and again. So we have this kind of like this project leading, like PL, we abbreviate project leader to PL. I apologize, it's a little bit confusing on this image. How to set up each project to make sure that everyone is starting smoothly, or even just having means of conversation to talk with other project leaders, so that if you're maybe stuck and don't quite know how to overcome a challenge or work out a certain thing, you can ask your peers for help who are maybe also going through similar challenges. Next story, there's always another way. So one year for Christmas, we gave our son a magnet connecting block toy, and his eyes lit up brighter than the tree when he realized that the pieces could stick together, and he can make anything from cars to rockets. But sometimes, though, he'll make something quite adventurous, like you can kind of see in these images here, or he'll play with things quite rigorously, and they'll break. Those things will fall to pieces. And as you can imagine, for a small child, there's a lot of tantrums. There's a lot of tears that come from that. And we calm him down, and we try to kind of console him and rebuild his efforts. But what used to often happen is that we would build it again to cheer him up, but it's different. At first, we feel like maybe, oh no, we've not done it right. Like we've not built it the right way. Is he going to get upset again? But we're always surprised to see him pick it up, build something even more adventurous on top of what we already made. Like it was never fixed in his mind. And as you can imagine, there's maybe quite kind of clear parallels to this too, in that there's more than one way to make something. If you're working on a digital product or service or whatever it might be, sometimes the things we plan to make don't always fall into place in the way that we would expect. And trying to kind of force the outcomes on tasks you give teams might also lead to tantrums in your team as well. So setting such expectations on your teammates could lead to feelings of disappointment or even a lack of accomplishment in their own ability to solve problems. If you're trying to force a particular outcome to occur because you are really driving it, and maybe there isn't so much of a rationale, those are the kind of expectations that maybe are quite difficult for people to exceed, because it's hard for them to understand where those expectations are coming from. And it's not to say that setting expectations isn't important, but what is important is having the willingness to embrace how those around you can build off of your ideas in unexpected and exciting ways. And these points of execution can serve as great opportunities to set stages for people of different specialisms or backgrounds to collaborate and learn from each other and experience new things. You can see from this image, this video playing in the background here was for a project that we did with Japan Rail, JR. I'm not sure if anyone's been to Japan and is familiar with JR. But this is one project where we knew that it was going to go out to market. myself and another designer who paired on this project, we had this kind of sense of getting things out into the market, and we had to be really cautious that the ideas that we were coming up with, we weren't getting too fixed into those ideas, because we would show them to potential users and they were very quick to say, this isn't right for me, this is not going to help me in my day-to-day. And so, like I mentioned before, we really had to put our expectations in check to make sure that we could be excited about the right things, but also be flexible when things needed to be done in a different way. Finally, giving and taking feedback. This is one that perhaps, even if you're not a project lead, is maybe something that everyone will experience or has maybe already experienced, but giving feedback is really hard, and getting it is hard too. Feedback is a tricky thing. There's always going to be different opinions of what is maybe right and what is maybe wrong. Even if it's explained to you in a calm voice or with clarity, it's something that if you're not really ready to be getting feedback, it can be quite painful, even if the feedback isn't necessarily about you. And giving it likewise too, if it can be difficult in those same regards. But getting feedback on your work is the only way you'll grow. It forces you to rationalize your thinking and creative decision making, and it teaches you to swallow your pride. So some tips for giving and getting feedback. Perhaps something you can do is creating constraints. So when you'll show an illustration, for example, and it's in a particular color, and you may be looking at that, maybe you don't like that color. It's really easy to just go with the gut feeling and say, no, I don't like that. That's not good. I don't like that color. However, that's not helpful for the person who's hoping to get feedback from you. Maybe they need something a little bit more constructive. So try to go beyond the gut feeling. Ask the person giving you feedback to be constructive and give their rationale as to why they're maybe seeing things in the way that they are. And encourage them to ask questions of you in what it is maybe you see, or maybe it is what you want to get in terms of feedback. But also, as maybe on your end as well, like ask as many questions as you like, to really dig into, perhaps, like if someone's saying no or they're not quite sure about something, there's a reason behind that, and it's important to try and get behind that. So try to move away from gut reactions and try to get those underlying perspectives. Another thing you can do is to tag team. So let's take the illustration example again. I mentioned before. What you can do is maybe put it on the wall or on a table, and you can work together. You can tag team on critiquing a piece of work. Even if you've poured like your love and your energy into something that you really care about, trying to kind of detach yourself a little bit from it personally is going to make feedback a lot easier to get, and also to give yourself as well. You might see things differently if you're able to detach yourself from it a little bit more. So you can make feedback a collaborative process. So it isn't necessarily about giving feedback to you. You can focus on what it is that needs to get the feedback in the first place. And finally, don't ask for the answer. If you're showing a piece of work and you feel like the person you're asking knows what to do, try not to ask for the answer. Try to find those realizations in how to develop the work for yourself. It's really tempting to be in a position where I just want the solution. I just want to be told what to do. But doing so won't allow you to push yourself a bit further to explore other possibilities in the work you're doing, and maybe other ways of making it better. And so solving the problem yourself gives you another opportunity to learn and grow your skills, both within your craft, but also within your ability to give and receive feedback. And that's it. I apologize. I've gone over time a little bit, quite a bit. I didn't realize I would take so long here. But if there are any questions, or if anyone would like to hear any more anecdotes around specific IDEO cases, I'm more than happy to take them.
Thank you, Daniela. Thank you, Ash. for your valuable presentation. Now we are going to the space for questions, and then we will take a picture. Ok, entonces ahora quiero como unas preguntas. Listo, por ahí tenemos agradecimientos para Ashley. Vamos a tener un espacio de preguntas, entonces por el tiempo vamos a tener unas 3 preguntas como máximo. Por favor, si quieren abrir su micrófono o si gustan pueden también escribirlo por el chat para contarle la pregunta a Ashley. ¿Quién va primero? ¿Quién se anima? ¿Quién se anima a encender su micrófono? Ok, yo.
Oh, I see some good questions in already.
Ok, yo. Ahí, muy bien. Perfecto. Okay, the first question is Job, Ashley. Can you?
Yeah,
can
so
you,
I
okay,
can take that. So the first question is, wow, questions are pouring in. I'll try to get through as many of these as I can. I'm happy to take things offline as well.
Only 3 questions. Please.
Only 3. Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll take the first one, just giving as it came in very quickly. How is the communication and language barriers handled? So yeah, that's a very good question. Being I'm certainly not Japanese, but I'm residing in Japan. At IDEO, we are we pride ourselves on having a diverse community, and so our office is comprised of is about half and half of Japanese domestic designers and people from overseas too. And there's IDEO is an English first company, so everyone speaks English internally. There might be a few people who speak Japanese, including some of the international designers too. But when we are working with clients, for the most part, we're working with domestic Japanese clients. And so if we try to make sure that there is Japanese capability on a project that we're working on, or try to get people help for interpretation and that kind of stuff if need be. But it's certainly a challenge. I'm sorry I couldn't show up in Spanish today. I can speak some Japanese if you want, but I'm not sure if anyone here will get that. I think I might give Daniela a difficult time interpreting. Let's see, 2 more questions. Let's see. What was one of your main challenges starting as a leader? So you maybe gathered that a lot of what I spoke about today was really about people. And for me, that was a really big realization. I came into IDEO purely as a graphic designer with some interaction design capabilities. And I was really focused on the making side of things, really focused on my work purely, or how I could make something to help someone else communicate a story or a piece of strategy with our clients and peers. But then when I was presented with the opportunity to start project leading, it was a big challenge for me because I'd been so focused on the screen, admittedly, that suddenly I needed to start talking to people and communicating as to why I was doing what I was doing, or maybe why we needed to do things differently. And the big realization for me was understanding that a lot of the work, especially that I do here at IDEO, is really people focused. It's really about not just what you make, but how it's seen by people, how it helps people, how it's received by people, and how we can use design to solve the challenges that other people have. So that was, for me personally, that was quite a big shift to understand that, oh no, this isn't just design work, this is people work. I need to understand how to blend those 2 things together. It's not a different hat, it's how do I use design as a tool to converse and solve people's challenges. There's a thumbs up on one of these questions, so maybe that can be the last one. How do you deal with people who hire you and don't know or don't feel about working with the design thinking? Okay, I think I understand what this is getting at. So at IDEO, we function within, we use design thinking as our primary tool for creating innovation. And in this market, in Japan especially, there has been a growing maturity with understanding what design thinking is. Several years ago, it was still quite a new idea for people, or it wasn't something that could be easily integrated into our clients' organizations or in their processes. And so what would often happen was we would have to spend a lot of time not only doing the work, but also explaining why we were doing what we were doing along the way, which some clients are open to it, some clients it takes a little bit more time and effort. At IDEO Tokyo now, we have a learning offering too. So we function within the three core capabilities in Japan. We have one, which is our consulting business, which is where we do a lot of our main design work with mostly Japanese conglomerates, but then we also have a learning business and a venture business. So we get to work with startups as well in Japan. But our learning business is a chance for us to help our clients understand the processes that we would be going under if we were to do those bigger consulting projects. Or if a client is interested to learn and see how they can apply that process for themselves, the learning engagements are a chance for us to kind of impart that knowledge and find ways in which they can integrate that more seamlessly into their day-to-day. Do we have time for one more question? I see a few sneaky ones coming in.
Yes, of course.
Okay, I'll end on let's see. I saw Carlos added one in, so I'll end with this one. Within the projects you have led, was there a developer on your team as part of the product